Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is January 26th, a Thursday, about 7 p.m., and I want to take a moment to share with you something that I thought was absolutely outrageous. I mean, this is something that we have not seen since the 1980s and the Rambo movies. I mean, this is ridiculous, and is refuted by what we see even today in Hollywood by the John Wick movies, which we'll go over in a second. How ridiculous is this? Well, let me make it as simple as possible. About a day ago, WKRN out of Nashville put out this message for the public. They lied to the public, and they did so with the help of the ATF. Because the article they have is thousands of rounds within a minute. ATF agent warns of a device being used on guns, being attached to guns, excuse me. And this is an article by Mye Owens. Now, let me be very clear. Everything in that title is a lie. It is not true. It's not realistic. It is as close to reality as a fantasy. It might as well be John Wick. Quite honestly, it might as well be a John Wick movie. Even, in fact, the John Wick movies are more accurate to reality and physics than anything that is being said in this article. And the reason why they're saying that is because they're trying to scare you. Because in every John Wick movie, he has to reload. This is John Wick, the baddest bad guy out there. Somebody who can kill everyone, who is able to use a firearm and all firearms in ways that the best of the best in the real world wish that they could do. And he still has to reload. He fires faster than you or I ever could, and he still needs to reload. The video for that you can check out for yourself, but think of it like this. John Wick can't even do what Rambo does. John Rambo fires forever. It is the ultimate actual gun trope where, the good guy can fire forever and always has rounds in his gun no matter what. That's what the ATF, that's what WKRN Nashville are trying to tell you. That somehow that this device is magically transforming handguns into better than and bigger and badder than actual A-10 Warthog mini Vulcans. That's just not possible. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Actually, let me explain this. So in the article, they start off trying to tell you that this is dangerous. Assistant Special Agent in charge, Tommy Everson, is trying to explain that it just takes seconds, that they've been tracking this small device that they call a switch that transforms magically, like in Hogwarts, transforms a handgun into a machine gun. This is physically impossible because no matter what device you add to a handgun, it is not going to transform it into a machine gun. The bullets aren't changing. The magazine isn't expanding. There's not some magical porter that fills up the magazine and keeps on adding bullets. It's just not possible. But they're trying to make you think it is because they're counting on half of America who don't own firearms, that the only thing they know about firearms is what they see in a TV show or in a movie, and they want you to think that that's real. They want you to be scared because if you're scared, you will obey and you will do what you are told. In fact, there's an entire political ideology out there, the progressive ideology, that demands that you must obey. And they're more than happy to use scare tactics to make you do so. Now, we've already covered that the ATF has already used this lie before when they were putting out the message that having a stabilizing brace transforms a handgun into a short barrel rifle, into a shotgun, into some other device that just isn't true. They lied to you. And so now they're continuing that lie in Nashville. Now, the story goes on a little bit further because they go on to say it turns a semi-automatic, this switch device transforms a semi-automatic rifle firearm into a machine gun. So instead of one round being discharged from a firearm with a single pull of a trigger, when the switch, this magical device, is added, it is installed into a firearm. You're looking at 1,200 rounds with a single pull of a trigger within a minute. This is flat out wrong. This is a lie. This is not possible. And let me explain what I mean here. Your average, almost every single handgun in the world carries about 15 rounds. That's it. 15 rounds. No matter how fast you pull that trigger, no matter how fast it fires the bullet, it cannot fire more than about 15 rounds. Period. You'll never get to 1,200 rounds in a minute. You won't get to 1,200 rounds in an hour or a lifetime. Just 15 bullets in the magazine. You can't physically do what he just said it's going to do. The average rifle will fire at best most magazines are about 50, maybe 100 rounds if you really have a big magazine, and that's pretty heavy. And even if you were to do that, you couldn't fire 1,200 rounds in a minute or an hour. There's only, at max, 100 rounds. And quite honestly, you're talking about, on average, for the regular American citizen, 20 to 30 rounds. That's it. That's all you can do. And then you have to reload. Even in John Wick, you have to reload. Even John Wick has made that very clear. You still need to reload. This is not Rambo. This isn't RoboCop. You're going to reload. Because even if you're the best of the best in a Hollywood movie, you still need to reload. Now, I know. You're going to say, but Mike, you're missing the point. Well, no, I'm not. The point is you should be scared. You should obey. You should give up your rights and do what you are told, because the progressive ideology wants you to do that. Now, why would they do that? Well, as far as I can tell, Mye Owens, who is the reporter who put together this story, she is best known for her time in Washington, D.C., working at WSAV-TV in Washington, D.C., when she covered the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court fiasco. And as much as I tried, I can't find those articles. I can't find that coverage. I mean, if you go to Google and put in Mye Owens, Brett Kavanaugh, you won't get any of her articles or any of her story, which seems to mean that it was all scrubbed, that it was removed from the internet, which makes me think that her coverage, which is focused on women in politics, was proven to be false and inaccurate and useless. That's what I believe. Now, if Mye Owens wants to come on and tell me how that's incorrect, I'm happy to give her the time to do so. If she would like to stand by her coverage, whatever it may have been, I'll be happy to give her the time publicly to refute anything I've mentioned. But the impression I am left with when I search for this and it's scrubbed makes me think that she had a political ideology, and that was the take she gave to WSAV-TV in Washington, D.C., and when she was proven wrong, it was scrubbed from the internet so no one could ever see it. Even though WKRN, in their bio about Mye Owens, says that's what's her claim to fame. Okay, fair enough. So I have this belief that this reporter is more progressive leaning in their ideology. So she wants to support that ideology, which means you don't get to own a firearm. The Second Amendment doesn't apply to you, whether you're a woman or a minority, or God forbid, you're white and straight. You don't get to own a firearm because that's what the overlords have said. I could be wrong. That's the impression that I'm getting. And the overlords include those at WKRN in Nashville. They don't want you to have a firearm. They want you to be terrified. They want you to be scared. They want you to be ignorant and think that the world is Hollywood of the 1980s, of Rambo. Not even John Wick. No, you have to go back to the 1980s. This is so stupid when you listen to this and you think about it. And it's also useless. I mean, the biggest problem that's facing many parts of this country, it's like Chicago. Chicago, which in the first 25 days of 2023 had half as many people being affected by illegal firearm use by gangs and drug dealers than the 112 people over the last 2 years that ATF Special Agent Tommy Evanson is trying to convince you is the next threat to your life. Think about it. They say in the article that this has been a problem 112 times over the last 2 years, that it happens 60 times a year. 30 people in less than 25 days in Chicago have been affected by illegal firearm use. In fact, in Chicago in 2022, according to the data that's available, and you can check this out for yourself, where is it? There it is. According to all the data that's available, 630 people were killed in Chicago in 2022. 2,600 people were shot because of firearms wielded by gangs and by drug dealers predominantly in Chicago alone. That doesn't take into account Baltimore, Detroit. It doesn't affect St. Louis, LA, New York City. Doesn't count on Portland or Seattle, Atlanta, and everywhere else that there's an autonomous zone in America. Those are our problem areas, and that's with all the gun control that Democrats can possibly put together. Especially Chicago is an example of every form of gun control they have ever dreamed of exists in Chicago, and the gangs don't care. The drug dealers don't care. The criminals aren't following the law, and gun control is not saving your life. But the ATF wants to scare the people of Nashville and say, well, this device that affects 60, that's been used in crime 60 times in the last year is far more deadly and more of a problem than drug dealers and gangs in America. That's stupid. That's not logical. And that they are using magic to transform handguns into machine guns. Well, that's just an outright lie. And again, they're doing this because they want you to be terrified, because they want you to think that this is a Rambo movie, and that the trope that we see in TV shows, that we see in movies, is the reality of guns, that they will fire forever. Once you load it, it's going to keep firing. As soon as you pull that trigger, it's just going to have an endless stream of bullets coming out of it. Because they want you scared. Because they think you're dumb. They think your IQ is room temperature. And so that's why they came up with this story. Because literally they think you're dumb. And if you're dumb enough and if you're scared enough, you're going to obey without a question. Now, I should point out very clearly for you that WKRN, they know that this was a lie and that they were misleading the public, which is why, since the article first came out, they've changed the title to Dangerous Switch Device Used in More Gun Crimes. They changed it from thousands of rounds within a minute because they were boldly and bald-faced lying to you. But they didn't change the story. It still stays the same. It's still a mass of lies. But even if you go with used in more gun crimes, no, it's really not. The majority of gun crimes by gangs, by drug dealers, by sex slave gangs is not because of the switch. Not even close. So let me sum this up. They piss me off because they're insulting the intelligence of the American citizen. They're assuming you don't know what reality is, that you can be easily deluded, and they never want you to think, well, the answer to the problem that they are presenting to you is either one, you have the right to have body armor. It's a right that's been taken away in New York State and many other states where they say it's a crime for you to passively, let me say it again, passively protect yourself with body armor. No, they want, that's illegal, that's a crime. And they don't want you to be able to go to the police because they're defunding the police in these democratic cities. So you can't protect yourself, and no one's there to protect you. And they're telling you that these criminals are magically able to kill you in ways that only exist in Rambo movies, only exist in John Wick movies. And so what are you going to do? Well, you have to obey. Because if you obey, magically the ATF is somehow going to stop criminals by taking away the rights of law-abiding citizens. And WKRN in Nashville agrees. That's why they ran the story. They want you to obey. Don't ask questions. Don't look at the logic. Just do what you are told. And I think that's insulting. I think it's dangerous. I think it's oppressive. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think that this is perfectly fine. It's okay for the ATF to lie to you. Maybe you think guns are the most evil thing in the world, which doesn't explain knife crimes, which are routinely about 4 times as deadly as rifles in the United States. Maybe you think that guns are the worst thing possible, which doesn't explain the fact that about handgun, bare hands, is about 2 times as deadly as all rifles in the United States every year for decades upon decades, half a century at least. But forget that. You want to obey. That's up to you. For the rest of us, we should be asking questions. Mye Owens should have asked questions. WKRN in Nashville should have asked questions. They should have challenged the ATF and say, none of that makes sense, and you don't have the right to do this. You can't pass these regulations as if they are laws. You don't have that power. Why should the American people obey and lose their right to the Second Amendment? That's the way I think about it. That's why I'm upset about it. That's why this story stuck out to me, because it sounds like a movie, but it's not. It's reality. And that reality is meant to oppress you through fear and lack of knowledge. But I want to hear what you have to say. What do you think? Do you think that we live in the world of Rambo? Do you think we live in the world of John Wick? Do you think the ATF thinks you believe that? And what would you prefer? Do you prefer to be dumb and obey? Or would you rather ask questions and rather be able to protect yourself like the Second Amendment says? Women and the poor are going to be the most directly affected by this. And let me ask you, women and those who are poor, do you think what Mye Owens, WKRN Nashville, the ATF, do you think what they are doing right now in trying to terrify you and make you obey, is that going to make you safe, or is it going to leave you less safe? I look forward to seeing your comments, and I look forward to seeing you Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for this and many other issues that are affecting us all. Thank you for putting up with the backup system and its limitations, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.